Hey again, guys. So I'm still all alone and wanted to get some things off my mind. I wanted to talk about an important subject. At least I think it's an important subject. And it's been on my mind lately because of, because of some comments that I've seen. And that is how to collect. I have this little spoof going with my friend Rick from Vintage Oddball Cards. And some people that may not know us or don't understand that I'm joking thinks that I'm serious, right? And challenging him, like to who has the best collection of oddball cards or whatever. And really, number one, that's not what I'm doing at all. Just trying to get him to go live. But it got me to thinking that nobody wins at collecting. Everyone's collection is unique. And you're never going to have the best collection. There's like always somebody's going to have a better one. But is there really such a thing as a better one? Right? Like, I don't know, maybe you collect something that isn't of a lot of value. Like it's just not what you collect. They're not the real super expensive cards. Does that make your collection any less? No, it doesn't. You see so many great collections here on YouTube. So many. I mean, I got my jaw dropping. I get jealous every time I watch a video on YouTube. Everybody has a card I wish I had that I am jealous of in a good way. I mean, I watch Andrew Nuff Said cards, and some of the cards he shows, it's like my collecting is junk. And Dave Blue Jacket 66, my collection is junk next to that. When you, it doesn't matter if you have a rare card in a 7, someone's got an 8. If if you got a card worth $1 million, somebody else has one worth 1.2. I mean, quite honestly, you could pull a card out of a pack today or tomorrow that's worth more than my whole collection. Think about that. So, you have to collect, I think, the way that you want to collect. I certainly do. My collection is unique in that I have a lot of what people call oddball items. I have a lot of the off the beaten path cards. I have a lot of the big rookie cards and a lot of the popular cards, but I've always been drawn to the more obscure. And so my collection is, in that direction. And there may be people that have a lot more of the big cards. For instance, I don't have any T206 Ty Cobbs. I don't have the 33 Gaudy Babe Ruths. I have lots of other Ty Cobbs and I have lots of other Babe Ruths, but I don't have those. Those are the real popular ones. I would love to, sure. I'd love to have those. Along with the Sport King Babe Ruth, that's one I'd really, really like to have. But, I have a budget, as I'm sure most of you do, and you have to pick and choose what to buy with that budget. And I don't spend an awful lot on cards, not nearly as much as I'm willing to bet most of you spend more on grading, just grading, than I spend on my cards. But we all have very, very unique collections. I mean, if you go and you watch Rick Vintage Oddball Cards, and then you go and you watch Pepino Man, I mean, two very different collections, but they both have cards that make me jealous. If you go and watch my man Lou Rock or James Elite Hunters, I didn't even know all the cards James had. And we get to texting back and forth and kind of comparing, asking if you have this, if you have that. And man, he's sending me cards. I didn't even realize the extent and what a fantastic collection he has. But here on YouTube, we got guys that just have autographs. We have guys that just do football, just do hockey, just do modern, pack rips. You got vintage guys. The wonderful thing about collecting is you can never get them all. you can never even probably know about them all. You know, I'm still discovering new cards, new sets almost daily that I didn't know existed. So it's like you know, it's a journey, not a destination, to use a cliche, and you're just never gonna be complete. I mean, there's no point for me anyway where I'm like, well, if I get that card, I'm done. Because you might think that, but as soon as you get that card, you want another one. And so that's you know, it's just been on my mind. I see comments and you know, like people are competing, or it's a bunch of rich guys showing off on YouTube, showing their card collection, and that's really not what it's about. I want to tell you something. Before I had any expensive cards, back when they weren't worth anything, I loved my collection. You know, I loved my cards from the 80s and the 70s that my babysitter gave me, and all the $7 cards I picked up at a flea market. You know, and some of my favorite cards are those cheap little cards, or some item that I got that's not worth anything. Maybe nobody on here even wants it. But it just fascinates me that when you get to know other collectors, and especially here on YouTube, and you start to see their collections versus yours, how much different they are. Sure, a lot of us have the same 1980s rookie cards and 1970s rookie cards, you know. But after that, right, I think it just goes in all kind of different directions. I mean, the vintage stuff, I'll bring them up again. Andrew Nuff Said Cards. He has like really, really unique stuff. And he probably doesn't have anywhere near the number that I have, or you know, I have a very extensive collection from all years and all sports and all that. He likes the big Babe Ruths and the rare cards and the Ty Cobbs, but everything he has is just draw dropping. And then you have other guys that might only have 50 cards in their whole collection, but they're all, you know, high end, Cracker Jack and a 7 Joe Jackson and Ty Cobb, and but they have a very small collection and very high end. I used to get into well, I didn't really get into anything, but this guy on Facebook used to always kind of put everybody down, and he used to tell me, I don't know why you don't sell all your cards and get like 20 vintage cards in a 9. And I'm like, why would I want to do that? Number one, grade isn't that important to me. And a vintage card, I don't need a 9. And number two, I want to own all those other cards. I don't only want to have 20 cards high end. I could care less if my cards are a 9. I honestly could care less. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of put this out there, get your thoughts, and make everybody, I don't know, maybe feel better, because I get wrapped up in this too. I mean, there are days in this that I see cards that make me want to just quit collecting. Like, my collection's junk, right? I mean, you see, and then you see things that you just shake your head. Like Klay Thompson selling for $42,000, and I'm surrounded by cards I love that I know are rare or hard to find, and I searched my whole life for them, and I wouldn't trade them for a Klay Thompson. Are you freaking kidding me? Hell no. But they're not maybe worth anywhere remotely near what that card is worth. You know what I mean? And it gets frustrating as a collector, but it's okay. I mean, if I had just all my cards that I grew up with, and over the last few years, I gave those all back. I mean, knowing that I had them, I'd be disappointed. But what I'm saying is, I was really happy with my collection before the last few years, where I picked up a lot of great new cards. You know what I mean? And there have been times where I tried to focus. And one time I traded off all my football cards. I said, I can't collect everything. I'm just going to stick to baseball. And then after a while, I got back into football cards, and I had to rebuild that whole collection. And now I have a better collection than I did. And it was fun to rebuild it and find some of those cards that I had at one time. And, you know, it's also good. A lot of people will trade off or sell off cards that they're not necessarily that happy with to get cards they are happy with. You know, you don't have to own everything. I used to think that. I used to want, like, once it was in my collection, and I'm still like this to this day, actually. But once it's in my collection, it's really hard for me to part with it. And I have cards that I've gotten rid of where maybe like I had a 5 and a 3, and I like the 3 better. But you get wrapped up in the grading, and maybe I should keep the higher end because it's more valuable, even though I don't like it as much. And so you sell the 3. And I have actually stayed up at night regretting those kinds of things, thinking, "Oh, I should have sold the 5. I loved that 3. I didn't even sell it for that much. So disappointing, you know." And you look at these catalogs and these auctions. And Rick from Vintage Oddball Cards. So I text with George Diamond Yawn Sports Card, Bob Lewis, and Lou Rock, and Lead Hunters, and Rick, and Don from Field of Dreams Cards. We have like an ongoing text all day and night. Now, some of those guys will block us because we do it too often. But man, Rick was showing me some of these old, I think they were Venezuelan cards. I think maybe Cubans. This one set I had never seen before with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb. And I was like, I just want them so bad, but it just made me feel so inadequate because I don't have those cards. I never even knew they existed. And now, I feel like that all the time. And I have to force myself, I have to tell myself that to appreciate what you do have, enjoy what you do have. Your collection is unique to you. It's probably very nostalgic. I have some cards that I would probably like to upgrade if I had just gotten them, but they're so nostalgic to me, I would never upgrade them. Because if I got a higher graded one, I'd still couldn't get rid of the lower graded one because it just means too much to me. It was something that, somebody gave me, or something that I got as a kid that I just cherished so much at the time. It was so exciting for me to get at the time. And I remember that. And so anyway, I just had this whole, collecting thing on my mind. And you can't win at collecting. It's kind of like keeping up with the Joneses with your house, right? There's always somebody that has a bigger house. Warren Buffett was the richest guy in the world. And there were probably 10,000 people, maybe 50,000 people that had better houses than him. Maybe more than that. I knew people that had a nicer house than Warren Buffett. Like, there's always going to be somebody that has something better. And, I laugh. Dave Blue Jacket 66 is, to me, the pinnacle collection, like, of all collections. And, of course, I love Nuff Said cards, too. But Dave's collection, he just has insane stuff. And he would know that growing up the way I did, and he grew up similarly, although I am jealous because he grew up where his dad collected. And I remember when I was a little kid, I used to wish that my dad had collected. I wanted, I used to see, they used to have these Topps TV commercials, and it would show the father and son collecting together. And my dad was a huge sports fan. That's where I learned about everything. And, he supported my collecting, but it wasn't his thing. And I used to kind of envy those kids on the commercial that their dad collected with them. And my dad never collected, so I didn't have any cards to inherit, or I would have had all kind of, 50s and 60s cards. And that's the one thing that is just awesome about Dave and the way he was brought up, and got to do that with his dad, and got to inherit his collection and learn about all these cards. All I had was the occasional book or people at the flea market to talk to. I had to learn all this stuff pretty much on my own. And it's just the only reason, it wasn't that I was knowledgeable at cards back then, but I was knowledgeable at baseball. I knew all the old baseball players. I knew who held every record. And so I would recognize baseball players that my friends never heard of, right? And so I have a vivid memory of paying $7 for a 1959 Bill Mazeroski. And of course, I always say this is before there was such a thing as a rookie card. They were, called that. And I would just go for the cards I liked. And if it was a player I knew and I thought was a great player or whatever, And that 1959, when I saw it, I walked away from it, I think a few weeks in a row, because it was $7, which was a lot of money back then. And if I was anywhere other than Pittsburgh, it would probably been $2 or $3. But it was in real nice condition. And it's just like, I just love that card. It's just a beautiful card, that 59. And when I was a little kid, I mean, that was just so long ago, such an old vintage card. And I remember to this day buying that thing. I remember buying my first Sandy Koufax like it was yesterday. And these are the things that you remember. But I guess I'm done rambling now. But I just wanted to get this off my chest. It was something that I had on my mind, and I wanted to share with all of you. Because I know a lot of you, if I go through it, you go through it too. You go through these things. You look at collections. Every day I see cards on YouTube, every single day, that I will never own. They're just too much, and I don't pay that much for a card. So, unless there's a big correction in the industry, I'm not going to own them. And I know we talk about this all the time. You could have bought a bunch of cards 3 years ago that you can't buy now. Now you're just priced out. And there's all that regret. But you have to understand, you couldn't have bought them all before 3 years ago either, right? You can't go out and just buy 100,000 cards or 10,000 cards. There's so many. You just never run out of buying them. So that's what's on my mind. Hey, thanks for listening if you stayed this long. Appreciate it.